Well, let's start with the day's market action. The Sensex and the Nifty gave up intraday gains, ending marginally in the red. It was another very volatile session of trade with financial stocks dragging the market. The Nifty Bank Index lost over 250 points. Mid-caps managing to buck the trend with the index ending with marginal gains. Anuj is standing by now to take us through the market action. Volatile continues to be the mood of the market, Anuj.
Well, just the kind of the day where both bulls and bears would take something away. The market is near a very important support mark. All the rallies today got sold into. The first rally, which was maybe an obvious trade, but the post-noon rally also got sold into. But while every rally was getting sold into, every time the Nifty was coming close to 200-day moving average, it was taking support. So that really is your Lakshman Rekha now. The Bank Nifty underperformed once again, fourth day in a row that it's happened. Though the broader market did show some stability. As I said, the banks were down, so ICICI, Kotak, SBI and the HDFC Twins dragged the market, and there were some others like Hero MotoCorp, Titan and Tata Steel. On the gaining side, you had some stocks like Cipla, Tata Consumer, Shree Cement, though they don't make up for much of the index, and IT did well, especially in the last 1 hour or so. Names like TCS and Infosys did bounce back. Outside the index, the big sector to watch was city gas distribution. And of course, big names like Gujarat Gas, IGL, MGL were all higher. The setup is clear, but the Nifty must defend the 200-day moving average or this zone. Otherwise, the bears might just start to press home their advantage.
Anuj, many thanks. Moving on to the currency market, where the rupee made a marginal recovery against the dollar. On Monday, the rupee had weakened to record lows, and today's recovery is in line with most major currencies. In the bond market, the 10-year bond yields also softening in trade. Lata standing by now to take us through the money market action. Lata, some recovery there in the rupee, 81.58.
Well, there clearly is some kind of an exhaustion or a peaking off of the dollar rally. It's, either flat or inches below its 114.5 that it had touched. It's like more closer to 14.05. This is also because a lot of central banks have intervened. First, the BOJ intervened, the PBOC has been intervening. So there is a sense of, enough, it has run enough, and there is a bit of a peaking off, maybe temporarily. So today we've seen many of the Asian currencies, or at least a handful of the Asian currencies recovering. The Indian rupee has recovered, so has the Thai baht, so has the Korean won. But we must be aware that there can still be a potential of reverses. The Chinese yuan has still been depreciating, and since we export a lot to that country and import even more from there, if the yuan depreciates, the deficit increases with China. So we have to keep an eye. The RBI may actually prefer a gentle depreciation like the yuan. But for the moment, the point is that Asian currencies, or the world of currencies itself, currency markets, is catching its breath. And there have been no sharp moves after that over the weekend move in the pound. The bond markets as well in India are showing a decent recovery. Already yesterday we saw the 10-year spot yield recover a bit towards close because people had gone seriously short and they were covering shorts. Today we are seeing, the OIS, the overnight index swap market, which is a very, very liquid market, which reflects the mood of the market. Also seeing yields either peaking off, staying flat like yesterday, or falling off. Now, why are they flat? Because already the 1-month OIS is factoring in a 50 basis hike by the Reserve Bank. Now, how much more is there for that yield to rise? Likewise, the 1-year OIS already yesterday was reflecting 6.9. That means the peak repo rate, the Reserve Bank should be raising it all the way to 6.75 or 7. That looks a little unlikely at this juncture. So there was a bit of an overshoot. And today we have seen all those yields also inching down by a couple of basis points. We will have to wait and see, because the US yields are still in an upping mode. From 3.79, they moved to 3.82 overnight. So there is still an upward pressure. But at the moment, the Indian yields seem to think enough is enough.
All right, we will have to see whether enough is in fact enough. Lata, many thanks for joining us. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman believes the currency is holding well against the dollar. Speaking exclusively at the CNN News 18 town hall, she said India is much better positioned than many other countries whose currencies have plummeted more sharply against the dollar. Meanwhile, the Economic Affairs Secretary Ajay Sheth said India's forex reserves are abundant, also adding that concerns over the depletion of reserves are overblown. Take a look.
We are far better than many other countries whose currencies have fallen pathetically against the US dollar. RBI is not aiming at fixing the exchange rate. The government doesn't believe in it. Indian rupee and its exchange rates, the rate is also left to the markets to decide how it's going to float or get fixated at some level. So RBI's intervention is more to avoid the fluctuation.
It is not a concern, and is the view which you are expressing is overblown. Because if you recall that about 2 years back, when the reserves were of the same order, even then the discourse coming out in media, etc., and even by even other informed persons, was that we have adequate reserves when they were 2 years back. Now, yes, there has been a depletion because of the inflows have come down, and at the same time the trade deficit at a higher level. But I don't see as a concern. India has a fairly large reserves.
That is the Economic Affairs Secretary. Now, after falling to its lifetime low against the dollar, the pound has also recovered some of its losses in today's trade. This after the Bank of England reassured the markets that it will not hesitate from raising interest rates to rein in inflation. However, despite the surge, the pound remains over the $1 mark. A money-controlled survey to gauge market sentiment finds that investors remain positive and are not too worried about the market fall. Over 77% of fund managers polled in the survey believe that key indices will not decline by more than 5 to 10% in FY23, despite rising concerns of a global recession. Fund managers also expect the domestic market to consolidate the gains that we've seen, hitting their 52-week lows back in June, and suggest that buying the dip would likely remain the best strategy going forward. That is the CNBC-TV18 Money Control Fund Managers Survey. In the oil market, Brent crude prices trading above $85 per barrel, boosted by a pause in the dollar rally. Prices also steady after Iraq's oil minister said that OPEC Plus producers are monitoring oil prices to maintain market balance. And staying with commodity prices, on to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The Kirit Parikh panel has sought more time to review the pricing formula for domestic natural gas. Parikh has told CNBC-TV18 that the panel cannot do justice to the issue since the committee was formed. They've been given time till September end to submit their report. Parikshit is standing by with more details. Parikshit, the expectation of a review of the pricing of gas on the 1st of October, where does that stand now?
Well, early in September, the government had appointed the Kirit Parikh panel to look into the gas pricing formula, and they were tasked to come up with a fair price for the end consumer. So the committee has been meeting, and it has representatives from different gas companies. And we spoke to Kirit Parikh some time back, and he said that we've not been able to do justice to the gas pricing formula, to the review that we started 2 weeks ago. We need more time. This is an issue that affects a very large number of consumers, a large number of industries as well. So they will need more time to deliberate on this. So they've sought more time from the government. So this is what Kirit Parikh said. The APM prices are set for revision from the 1st of October onwards. We've reached out to the Ministry of Petroleum also for a comment on this. They are yet to respond. But the Kirit Parikh panel clearly saying they need more time to review this formula.
Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. Speaking of natural gas, European nations are racing to investigate unexplained leaks in 2 Russian gas pipelines running under the Baltic Sea near Sweden and Denmark. Both pipelines have been flashpoints in an escalating energy war between European capitals and Moscow. Neither pipeline was pumping gas to Europe at the time that the leaks were found amidst dispute over the war in Ukraine. The latest in the Russia-Ukraine war, referendums called by Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine will conclude today, with citizens being asked to decide if they want to join Russia. Ukraine and the West have already slammed these referendums as a sham and a pledge to not recognize the results. The referendums could lead to Moscow annexing 15% of the country's territory. NBC News' Erin McLaughlin brings us the latest from the Russia-Ukraine war.
In eastern Russia, terror A man opens fire at the military enlistment office as everyone else runs for it. One officer injured, the suspect under arrest. According to local media reports, the suspect was shouting, "No one will go to fight." Troubling signs, the response to Russian President Putin's order sending reservists to the front lines is growing violent. The attack following a rare weekend of protest. From St. Petersburg, with some demonstrators struck by police, to Dagestan, where gunfire went off within the crowd. Thousands risked arrest to rail against mobilization, as many more dodge the draft any way they can. Lines of cars to cross the border into Finland and Georgia, traffic jams extending for miles, though others are reporting to draft offices. This man saying his mother was unhappy, but what can he do? We have to defend our country. But in Russian-occupied areas of Ukraine tonight, some say young men of draft age are now going missing. Zainish Hussein fled the eastern city of Kherson 3 weeks ago.
They go missing, right? Like, they just drag them out of their homes and take them somewhere.
That claim as Russia is poised to annex occupied areas once the controversial referendum to join Russia that critics call a sham election is over toward the end of the week. In Russia, Edward Snowden was granted citizenship. No response so far from the former NSA contractor who's wanted in the United States accused of espionage.
Well, that is the latest in the Russia-Ukraine war. Back home, Power Grid shares rallying after the government rejected REC's proposal to sell its stake in Power Finance Corporation to Power Grid. Power Minister R.K. Singh told my colleague Abhimanyu Sharma the decision is final and that Power Grid does not have the expertise in the field of financing.
We are joined by the Union Power Minister, Mr. R.K. Singh. Sir, thanks for speaking with CNBC-TV18. What have been the reasons behind not going ahead with the sale of PFC's stake in REC to Power Grid Corporation?
We examined the whole issue. Basically, we find that the Power Grid is engaged in an entirely different business altogether, and they will have a controlling stake in a company which is engaged in the business of financing, about which Power Grid does not have any expertise whatsoever. So we thought about this matter, and we felt that perhaps this needs reconsideration. We've decided that we shall not go ahead with it.
So are you open to considering this proposal again? What are the challenges which you are possibly going to address in a fresh stakeholder consultation?
We are not open to considering this proposal again at all. I mean, we are very clear in our mind that we have decided against it, and that decision is final.
Well, that's the Power Minister there. That's a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. The Adani Group has pledged to invest over $100 billion of capital over the next 10 years. Speaking at the Forbes Global CEO Conference in Singapore, Gautam Adani said around 70% of the $100 billion investment will be directed towards the energy transition. Top-level rejigs at the IL&FS board. Sources tell CNBC-TV18 that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has reappointed the current chairman and managing director, C.S. Rajan, as non-executive chairman. The ministry has also reappointed the current executive director, Nand Kishore, as the company's managing director. The changes will come into effect immediately and will continue till March 2023. Shares of Dish TV saw a sharp decline after shareholders of the company rejected audited financial results for the last two fiscals. Shareholders also rejected the appointment of S.N. Dhawan and company as auditor and Rakesh Mohan as independent director. The development comes amidst Dish TV's ongoing dispute with Yes Bank over the reconstitution of its board. The company said its AGM adjourned without assigning a day for a further meeting and that the board strength is now down to just 2 members. We will head into a break, but in a historic first, the Supreme Court live streams the hearings of its constitutional bench. That and more when we return. It's a historic day for the Supreme Court. The Apex Court has begun live streaming of its Constitution Bench hearings. Starting now, all hearings by the Constitutional Bench will be streamed live to the public, barring cases that involve national security. Ashmit joins us now to take us through the cases that were heard today. Ashmit, history in the making.
Indeed, in fact, exactly 4 years back, a bench headed by the then CJI, Justice Deepak Mishra, had held that sunlight is the best infectant and held that in principle, the Supreme Court is backing the idea of live streaming of court proceedings. But that took 4 years to, in fact, take effect. In fact, Justice U. Lal had a letter written to him by one of the petitioners in that case, which is lawyer and advocate Indira Jaising. And then it's on that count that we had Justice U. Lalit commit to this position, and then subsequently went on to say that there will be an independent platform, and not just on YouTube or any other platform, but there'll be a dedicated platform for these proceedings. But today was, of course, the first step, the first day of live streaming of court proceedings. There were constitution benches that were hearing issues such as the reservations on economically weak sections. That, in fact, was one judgment that was reserved today. There was also a dispute that was going on between the Delhi government and the centre, as well as the Lieutenant General. That dispute was also heard. Now that will be heard post the Diwali break. There's also the ongoing dispute between the factions within Shiv Sena. Not just that, what's interesting is that a notice came out in the afternoon which said that the challenge to the 2016 demonetization exercise will be heard by a constitution bench, which is also likely to be taken up tomorrow and is also likely to be shared on live streaming. So interesting times, these interesting changes. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. That seems to be the formula for now. But just a couple of caveats. The live streaming is currently restricted only to constitution bench proceedings. The other cases that happen on the other days, the PILs that we hear, unless and until they are referred to a constitution bench, which is 5 judges or more, they continue to be restricted. But for now, the first step has been taken by the Apex Court.
Ashmit, many thanks for joining us. Some of the other top stories tonight. Congress leader Sachin Pilot has arrived in Delhi amidst the ongoing political crisis in Rajasthan. Pilot did not respond to any questions by the media. Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has informed senior Congress leaders that he was unaware of the incidents that happened in the last few days and called them unfortunate. Sources say the decision on a new chief minister will be taken after the 30th of October. Show cause notices would be sent to at least 3 MLAs. 50 world leaders, including Prime Minister Modi, attended the state funeral of Japan's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. More than 4,000 guests, including US Vice President Kamala Harris, were in attendance. Prime Minister Modi also met his Japanese counterpart, Fumio Kishida. He expressed his deepest condolence over the passing away of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who he said has contributed significantly to strengthening the Indo-Japan bilateral partnership. Prime Minister Modi said the two countries are poised to deepen their partnership further under Kishida's leadership. NASA successfully crashed a spacecraft into an asteroid. The unprecedented test was an attempt to gauge NASA's capacity to defend the Earth in a doomsday scenario. Now, after seeing a severe shortage in supplies, the semiconductor space is heating up, with many players now keen on manufacturing chips. India has laid the foundation for global companies to set up semiconductor plants here. My colleague Ashmit Kumar caught up with Intel's Stephen A. Long, General Manager of Asia Pacific in Japan, and began by asking about the global race for chip fabrication and the upcoming plans for the company if they involve India. Take a look.
I would first start by saying Intel is very committed to India. We have been for over 30 years. We've got over 14,000 employees here in India at the top end of what we do in the semiconductor industry, which is design and develop the technologies for the future. At this point in time, we do not have intentions to get into the manufacturing realm, but we see ourselves doing a lot for the ecosystem. As a matter of fact, earlier today, we were here in Delhi with the company VVDN Technologies, signing a memorandum of understanding on how Intel can bring the semiconductor ecosystem to India.
There's a lot of work that Intel is doing in that direction. But as far as fabrication is concerned, if I can just ask a supplementary question, what is missing as far as India's pitch is concerned? The telecom minister, the IT minister argues that India has a huge pool of talent. So the question essentially is, what is missing in this picture? What will it take for a big company to, in fact, consider India as a part of this supply chain?
Again, I would continue to say India, you said it, the biggest asset that we see that India has is its people. 1.4 billion people of ambitious, highly educated, innovative people. And that's where we've chosen to invest at this point in time, the 14,000 people that we have here. If you add on some of our contract workers and all, that's over 25,000 people, over $8 billion of investments already in the country. And again, we see India growing faster than many of the other countries and more investments to come.
Let's talk about the global picture now. We're talking about a chip shortage. We have been doing so for the last good 18 to 24 months now. The question I want to ask is, are we finally nearing the end of that chip shortage? Is that something that you think is on the cards in the days and months to come?
We think we're probably another year to 18 months still into 2024. There's going to be spot areas of chip shortages, to which Intel has taken on as stewards of this industry, leaders in the industry. We've taken on our part in investing. We've announced over $80 billion of global capital expenditures investments over the upcoming years to address those shortages dead on. We've taken our own factories and done things that the industry normally would do, where substrates, components that normally is in the supply chain, we've taken those in-house because we have factories where we can actually, produce and do things so that we could produce, we could get more output so that customers could do what they want, what they need to do.
Well, that is Intel saying it continues to be committed to the India market, but it's not looking at manufacturing in India at this point in time. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.